Do you think this was a dream or a vision? How do you know it's real? Greetings, everyone, and welcome to We Are Not Alone, streaming here on Queen City News Plus. I'm your host, May K. Beeler. I'm also the chief transportation correspondent with Queen City News. I'm a pilot. I've flown over 40 years, over 30 different types of aircraft makes and models, so I'm definitely infatuated with all things flying. Here on this program, we'll be talking about UAPs, UFOs, alien encounters, things of high strangeness. So yeah, with my life experience, I'm definitely interested in the wild blue yonder. And our special guest today goes beyond the wild blue yonder, about 444 light years into outer space to a star cluster in the Taurus constellation. He is a very accomplished and talented musician and composer and businessman. Mark Glenn Moore joins us now from California. Mark, it is a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, that's a lot of hours in the air. I can't imagine. I got up to 82 in private flight.
Oh,
Cessna 182.
I love it. A fellow pilot. So, Mark, I understand you are at Contact in the Desert. This is like the world's premier UAP UFO conference.
I believe it's the largest, at least in the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah, Palm Springs, Indian Wells, at this incredible resort, and all the people that are really interested in the subject are here and speaking. There's a lot of investigators that are revealing new information. I'm part of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which is put together by a friend of mine, Dan Harari. He's a Hollywood publicist, and Stephen Bassett, who is in the D.C. area, and he has been working with Congress to release information the government has on UAPs and UFOs. So that's this organization, and it's called Hollywood Disclosure Alliance because Dan is a Hollywood agent. He lives in Hollywood, and he got some pretty big stars into it. I mean, Shirley MacLaine's one of the members.
Oh, yeah. We want to hear your story, but before we get into your connection, because everybody wants to know about this connection with star people, anything you can share with us, any breaking news out of this convention so far or this conference, something you can tease us with or anything new we should know about?
Well, okay. Well, there's a lot that is being discussed through multiple conferences and workshops on new information that's coming out. I think people are feeling more free to discuss if they've had personal experiences than they have in the past. With the government releasing little tiny bits and pieces of stuff about UAPs being recorded, which we've all seen. It's giving people a little bit more permission to not feel so stigmatized by sharing their stories.
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story with us today. Tell us about your first connection with the star people. How old were you? What happened?
Well, my first contact, I was 5 years old, and I was in the park near my house. And at 5, it's 1967. As a boy, I had a lot of freedom. It's the summer. I spent a lot of time in the park. And on this particular day, it was a Saturday. There was a rock band on the roller skating rink, and I sat behind the drummer on a grassy knoll, and I was just mesmerized. I had never seen a live band at 5 or rock and roll music. So I was enjoying the music, and I noticed a woman came and sat next to me, and she was dressed in, regular clothing, like all the housewives did. And there were a lot of children there, and the music was really loud because I was sitting behind the drum. And she said, "Hello, isn't this really nice? This music is fantastic." And I'm nodding, and I look over at her, and then she mentioned my name, Mark. I mean, I think it's just so amazing, and you're going to be a musician.
Mm.
And I look over at her, and I thought, how can I hear her talking? Because the music is so loud.
Mm.
And then I realized she wasn't talking to me telepathically.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
And
okay.
So I just looked and I nodded. I don't think I said anything. She said, "It's been nice talking to you." And she walked away. And it was
Mm-hmm.
a couple days later, I'm back in the park and she's there again. And we sit and have a conversation on a park bench. And she says, well, we're not from here. We're from a star constellation in the Pleiades. And she talked about stuff about me that no one could have known.
And
And
it's such a young age, though. You're only 5 years old. I mean, can you comprehend what she's telling you? And Pleiades, and where is that? What is that?
right, exactly. Well, she spoke to a 5-year-old, I mean, she
Okay.
was very simplistically, but it was all telepathic, which is all right, interesting all by itself. But she said, would you like to come visit us on our ship? And I said, what ship? And she says, well, if you like, but we need your consent. If you want to, you can do that. And at 5-year-old, I said, yeah, okay. So she says, I'll meet you back here in 2 days. And so I was in the park under a tree, and she showed up, but she wasn't in house clothes. She was in this satiny blue, I guess it was a space uniform. And then she took me into the ship.
Okay, wait, stop right there. So, Mark, did you tell your parents about this?
Yeah,
Said, Mom, I met this person in the park and she wants to take me on her ship. As a mother, I would be very concerned. What was the
very,
conversation with your parents?
yeah. Who is this woman? And yeah, no, to them it was just fantastical little boy fantasy.
Mm,
Nobody took me
mm.
seriously. And
Imaginary friends, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, and through my whole life is the same thing. These experiences started at 5 and they went up until about 17 and a half. So like, a decade and a half. And then the interactions are very years would go by before an interaction. So I was brought up, and there were 2 other children and there were a couple of adults, and they said, we're inviting you for an education. This is a school.
What was the ship like? Do you remember the ship? Were you beamed up? Like beam me up, Scotty? Or what do
Yeah,
you
but
remember about that?
wasn't like going through a beam light. It was just like that, instantaneous.
Mm.
Yes, it was a spherical ship. It was a Pleidian ship. I think there's images of them now. I actually have some photos that somebody gave me of the ships uh, that I was on. I didn't take the photos. I never had a camera or a recording equipment or even a notepad when I was taken up. But anyways, it was an education, and it's fantastical, and it's almost impossible to talk about because it's it's like if you had been in Europe and you traveled the ocean and found the Americas, and you went back and said, there's the Americas across the ocean. And people say, well, you can't go across that ocean. You'll fall off the planet. So, it's hard. If you haven't had that experience, it's very difficult um, to make it relatable. But nonetheless, I had the experience. I'm still having the experience.
Okay. So let me stop here. Who are these people? Where did they take you? What did
Well,
they look like?
yeah. Well, first they took me and the 2 other children on a tour of the Milky Way galaxy, just to show us around. Which I was back in a few hours. I mean, it just happened so fast. Ultimately, over many trips, they took me to their home planets in the Pleiades. I visited 3.
Could you breathe? I mean, you'd have a spacesuit on. Is there oxygen there? Is it beautiful? It sounds like
Yeah.
a
Well, okay. So the beings, the Pleiades, you could say they're like our second cousins.
okay.
A lot of humans have some of their DNA. They've been around a long, long time, maybe even before humans. So, so they're concerned for us. They're like protectors, but they're trying not to interfere. They're really trying to work behind the scenes. They're most concerned about our nuclear weapons.
Mm.
They don't want us to blow ourselves up because other civilizations in the past that they have the history, we don't. We should have this knowledge, but we don't. Other planetary civilizations have blown themselves up. They don't want that. They would like us to end war. Early in their history, they had war
Mm.
and all past it. They would like us to do that, but they're not here to fix things for us. That's a violation of their karma. They want us to learn how to fix it for ourselves.
Mark, why, as a child, were you picked?
They showed me my past lives on the first trip. They showed all of us our past lives, and that I've had many, and apparently I've had multiple past lives with these beings. And so I had agreed in this lifetime that I would work with them. So it was an agreement. And subsequently, they had asked me, will one day when you're comfortable, will you talk about what happened and what you saw? And, I guess that's the day I'm writing the book.
What do they look like?
They're humanoid. I call them the light people because they just sparkle. They're at such a high vibration. They're highly spiritual, highly technological beings, way beyond us. But they have a connection and they're concerned for us. They're very tall. They're very beautiful, tall beings, and they glow. But they are carbon based. They are humanoids. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So do they resemble? We tend to think about the Greys with those black eyes and slanted black eyes and slimy skin. No offense. Any resemblance there, or are they beautiful people? I know you said they glow.
Yeah, no resemblance to the Greys at all. And, apparently most people have had the interaction with these gray beings. I can't speak to that. I don't know what that agenda is. But apparently they contact a lot of people. I mean, here at the conference, people are talking about their experience with these gray beings. I haven't had that.
Do you think this was a dream or a vision? How do you know it's real?
Well, they brought me up. They took my body, and they have the ability to take me up out of my car, out of my bedroom, taking a walk. I'm physically there.
Tell me how you felt, because as a child, you can only take so much in, but your gut never lies. Did you feel at peace? Did you feel safe with them? Did you feel a nice energy? Were you ever scared?
I immediately recognized them. I felt comfortable. I felt I had known these people for a long time. Immediately, as a child, and as a 5-year-old, you really don't have a lot of barriers yet,
Right.
Life hasn't beaten you down, and you're not guarded. So, my vibration was probably aligned with them because I was just an open kid, and I was so excited about life, music and walking around the park, and so I was pretty open. No, but they're very respectful of karma, and one of the big lessons was free will. We have free will.
Yes. We're going to do free will to do a commercial. So if we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we are going to be right back to continue this discussion. Stay right there. Okay. So anything else you want to say about free will?
It's one of the very important universal laws that we have free will. And what that means is that our mind, our spirit, we have powerful rights as living beings. And whatever you want to call all of that, but we have that as a right. And the more we understand that we have that right, the more effective we can be in our lives in accomplishing things and treating people well. Because if you understand the power of free will, you're not going to violate anybody else's free will. And this is like the big problem with war. It's such a bad idea. It's violating too much. And if we're ever able to get past war, human species will be a lot better off.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. It seems like there's more and more discussion of this. There's more and more awareness of UAPs, UFOs, high strangeness, whatever you want to call it. Is there a reason we're hypersensitized to this now, and that you and I are talking about this right now?
Well, I think we're on the verge of the governments of the world disclosing that this has been going on, and they have evidence that we have been visited by beings from other worlds for a long time. And I think it's now because I believe it's going to be very, very difficult to keep it suppressed. I mean, we all have cameras now. People are photographing stuff every day. Um, I just, the cat's already out of the bag. And so the people here at the conference, they're kind of a little ahead of that game. They've been doing this research for a long time. And as I mentioned before, the stigma is wearing off a little bit because there's been release of some of this information. There's going to be a lot more. So it just won't be people that have experiences trying to tell their stories sounding like crazy people. There's going to be some really factual documentation coming out.
Are there other beings other than the Pleidians, I hope I said that right, that are visiting Earth or communicating with people or already on the Earth or living in the Earth or in the oceans? Or are there other species other than those from Pleiades?
Yes, there's apparently a few species that are here on Earth right now.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this, and
Okay.
so I'm what I know personally.
Wow. All right. How has this experience with the light people, the star people, how has it changed you?
Well, they taught me about. So when I was a young kid, they showed me that wireless electricity is possible on planet Earth. They showed me that a photovoltaic power plant can be placed in the desert in the Southwest. Let's say you took a map of the United States and you put a quarter down on it. That amount of space with solar modules could power the United States. And they showed me if you put 4 or 5 quarters down, you could power the world in just the Southwestern United States. Now, I believe solar modules were invented in 1967. I mean, NASA was using them, but I didn't know anything about them. They certainly weren't on houses. And I hadn't read or heard of Nikola Tesla, who was working with Thomas Edison. Tesla, who invented AC, alternate current. He had reinvented wireless electricity distribution. So as a 5-year-old, I was shown that this is possible. So what do? I go into business. I form a solar company. I get 2 patents on solar energy technologies. And then I go meet with Indian tribes who have the bulk of the land in the Southwest, Hopis, Navajo, Apache. And I say, hey, what about this? Why don't you stop buying your electricity? Why don't you make it and sell it? And I said, why don't you form a utility company? So I started giving tribes. I met with tribal leaders in multiple in California and in the Southwest, presenting this idea. And that came from the education I got as a 5-year-old.
Wow. So I assume there's a lot of technology that we enjoy every day that is not from us, that is from out of this world. Is that a correct assumption?
A lot of the technology, the fact that our tech is sped up so fast is due to the extraterrestrial influence.
So we're going to take a quick break, Mark, and we'll be right back when We Are Not Alone continues. Stay where you are. Welcome back, everyone, to We Are Not Alone. Our special guest today, Mark Glenn Moore, a very successful and accomplished musician and composer. He's in the natural food industry and solar utilities, and he's been telling us about his experience with the star people, 444 light years away in the constellation Taurus, the Pleiades. I believe it's 7 stars, Mark. Welcome back. Can you tell us a little bit about Pleiades? It's a star system. They're on a planet, I assume, not on a star, correct?
No, it's a star cluster.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's in our Milky Way galaxy. So in the grand scheme of things, it's humans, but they can come and go. If you think about, there's a billion stars in our galaxy, and there's a billion galaxies. I mean, just imagine that, right? And the Milky Way is just one, and they're in the Milky Way. In this beautiful star cluster, there's multiple planets, livable planets in that star cluster.
So the planet that you visited, if you remember, and I guess you're still in contact, as you said, does it look like Earth? Can you breathe? What does it look like?
Oh yeah, it has atmosphere. It's beautiful. One of the planets was highly evolved, very very futuristic, in a sense of shiny buildings, and there were many universities, multiple planetary cultures were learning medicine and science, and it was highly vegetated. So there was a big city, but it was mostly vegetation and lakes. Uh, the other planet was more of a humble lifestyle. Dwellings were simple, mostly underground, kind of like Hobbit-like,
Oh, good.
with gardens, um, providing their own food. And then the other planet they showed me was one where they actually manufactured the ships, which had most of the materials needed to manufacture these crafts that could do these amazing things that we're just learning about.
So the bodies that these Pleiadians inhabit, do they have disease? Do they age? Is there gravity where they are? Are they subjected to what we human beings are subjected to, the limitations of health?
Yeah, they find the vibration of Earth difficult. So they live in a higher vibrational uh, existence. Their bodies are they've evolved past disease. They've evolved past poverty. They've evolved past war.
How long
So
do they live? Does the body live very long?
hundreds of years. They can be very old. Yeah,
Wow.
because well, because all those reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they would like that for us. It just seems that us humans are really slow to to pick up on it.
Some of us slower than others. So let me ask you, how many humans or earthlings do you think are communicating with the folks from Pleiades?
Yes, hundreds, if not thousands.
Wow. Okay.
Apparently, as I'm learning, not as common as the visitations from the Greys.
Well, good, because the gray seems scary. I don't know. It seems scary. So let me just
Well, they
ask.
they apparently don't ask permission.
Okay. Well, that's not
They-
nice.
You know, again, I haven't had that experience, but of course, I've been talking to people that have, and yeah, I wouldn't like to be abducted.
No, of course not. So this is a brave question. I'm going to ask it. How could I communicate with the Pleiades if I wanted to? Could I?
You could, yes, you could do it through meditation.
Okay. And is it safe to do so?
Oh yes, they're benevolent. They have our best interests at heart. This species wants us as humans to succeed, and they want our planet to succeed, and they don't want us to blow ourselves up. And it's a very serious deal to them because any nuclear explosion, a test, or anything sends a ripple out into the universe, like if you throw a stone into a pond, and that circle expands until it hits the shore. Well, that nuclear explosion affects them all the way out there, and it affects things that we don't even know about. So they're very concerned that we just don't do that. And you've seen reports. Well, if you study the subject, you find spaceships all around nuclear sites.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because it's a concern. You know, they don't want to come and take over. They don't need our resources. They just want to keep us safe. As simplistic as that is, that's probably just it. They want to keep us safe.
Well, Mark,
They cover.
we are going to wrap things up. Two last questions. Um, One is there one God? Are we all part of a collective consciousness?
My belief is that we come from one source, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. The second question is I just want your closing thoughts with the Pleiadians, if I'm saying that right, and what you want all of us to know.
That we have a huge opportunity of growth and moving humanity forward in giant leaps. And the closer we get to that, the possibilities, the universe is unlimited. Resources are unlimited. They're available. It really comes down to the distribution and the sharing of the resources around us. And that should seem easy, but apparently for us on Earth, it's not.
Are they based in love?
Yes.
They're based in love. Okay. We're going to end it there. Mark, is there anything you want to say? First of all, how can people get in touch with you? Your book, when's it coming out? How can we learn more about you, Mark?
It's Been There and Back. And I'll announce the almost done with it when it's the publishing date. When it's coming up, I'll put it on my website, which is markglenmore.com.
Thank you so much.
I would love to hear more about your flying experience.
Oh, I'd love to tell you about it. It's fabulous. Thank you so much. And many blessings to you and your friends in the Star Cluster. And we thank everybody for joining us here on We Are Not Alone, streaming on Queen City News Plus. I'm your host, May K. Beeler. Thank you so much. What an incredible conversation. Thanks for joining us. We'll see what happens next time. We'll see you then. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mark. It's May K. Beeler from Queen City News. If you enjoyed watching this content, be sure to download and watch our full series of Queen City News Plus originals on our app. You can find Queen City News Plus using your streaming devices, including Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and Apple TV. Just search the name Queen City News Plus. Your support will help us to continue our series. Thanks so much for watching.